Hey Survivors, Black here from CasaBLACK Gaming, and anyone who has been following my channel knows that I have been anxiously awaiting Enshrouded ever since it was first announced, and they showed off the awesome building, and let me tell you, the building is awesome. But is the overall game good, and is it worth picking up just yet on its release since it is now available to buy on Steam in early access? Now I'm going to try to answer all of that and more, and give my honest review that I'm known for, all without any major story spoilers. Now a quick note is that I played the game back in September during a beta invite for a weekend, and I also played it during their demo on Steam. Now I can say that many things have been changed for the better with this early access release, and I did receive a free copy of the game a week and a half before it launched, so I was able to explore and do a lot. But I don't want you to think that the game has little to do, since I was able to do so much within that time. I did not play the game like I normally would to enjoy and savor everything, or to build like I would have liked. I played as much as I could, as hard as I could, to be able to help new players on day one with their questions. I am also not beholden to the devs to say anything in this review to flatter the game. My review is my own, and they will be just as surprised by it as you will be. So this is a fair question, and to be honest, the answer is no. It is not just a building game. Enshrouded is a survival game built on the premise that the world you awaken to is filled with dark terrors that dwell in a mist-covered area known as the Shroud, where your time is limited inside, as exposure to this will start to kill you after so many minutes inside of it. But of course, that's where some of the best loot and resources are located. In order to help you along, there are some NPCs who you will awaken to come work at your base, similar to Conan Exiles, but you don't have to beat them and enslave them in order to get their help. These NPCs will offer up new recipes for crafting and send you out on quests to further your upgrades and theirs. The game does a great job at filling the world with world building through these NPCs, but also through lore pages you're going to find throughout the world at abandoned camps, caves, little villages, and giant mysterious structures. I am also a fan of their journal, which can have multiple pages per quest to find to help you toward the goal of finding items or completing quests. But never fear for those who hate reading. The map, as seen here from my overall time in the game, is chock full of places to go, and your destinations will be notated on the map and can even be located through the quest itself if you're not sure where to go for a specific quest. But that feature can be a little confusing at times, as it needs to have a ping or something, which would be a nice quality of life feature. The game also has boss battles similar to what we had in Valheim. Now I will say that Valheims were more difficult usually, but with a world that can be terraformed, you are able to cheese things at times through both games, which is to be expected. But that doesn't always work for every boss, but no spoilers for me on that. Just know that there's a pretty epic moment that happens later with a boss that I completely loved and want more of. Since I mentioned Valheim and terraforming, let me say that the game plays more like Minecraft in that regard than Valheim. Valheim's terraforming was decent for a survival game, but Enshrouded totally takes it to the next level. It's not quite as deep, puns, as Minecraft's, but it's most excellent for a survival game and easily the best for any current non-Minecraft survival game, and you will go back to those other games let down because you cannot carve yourself an epic mountain base or tunnel to a destination. Now as for combat, it will be a mixed reaction depending on the player. Now I happen to like it because it kind of reminds me of Elder Scrolls Online in that you can block and roll during combat to avoid damage, etc. Now I like the skill tree and the options it gives for builds. Even if the game is not trying to be a dedicated MMO with classes, these sub builds offer up some very useful abilities, mostly passive or stat driven, which really helps to distinguish this game's combat versus most survival games. Now I will do a breakdown of what I recommend for solo players, since that is how I played the game in beta and during this latest playtime. But I cannot wait to get into the game with my wife and try to play a more supportive role as a healer. So if you haven't got the message yet, Enshrouded is not just a building game, but it's got one more other game comparison to make before I get into more of the review, and that is the current Switch Zelda games. Enshrouded allows you to unlock towers through the map that you can map to at any time after unlock, but you must first go through multiple floors of jumping puzzles using your glider, grappling hook, and trick jumps in order to reach the top. These challenges are fun and add a new layer of complexity to the survival genre that I wish other games would do. It really makes it more of an action-adventure survival game than anything else, and I welcome more of these towers or features to be in the game. And in fact, since I played the beta, they have added some of these puzzles into the NPC towers where you locate and wake them up as well, which was a very nice change. So far, I have enthusiastically told you what the game does, but does it do these things great? So let me start with the Shroud. I love the Shroud, and at times it is very challenging, not necessarily from the enemies, which can be easy to kill, but more from the time limit placed on you to get things done. It's a race at times to get your objective complete, and one wrong step can quickly lower your time or kill you almost instantly. The game is forgiving though, and has many ways and sometimes save points in an area to get you back into the fight relatively quick, and anything you cleared will stay dead unless you wait a few endgame days before coming back. Now, I would like a wider variety of things to fight in the Shroud and in the overworld overall, especially the bosses that guard the routes that we must clear. You will literally see the same guardian at a few of the routes. You know what can feel a little cheap is the loot that you get. You're going to receive legendary and rare weapons almost right off the bat, and pretty much everywhere there are silver metallic loot boxes, you can expect something shiny to drop. Now, I will say that while you might see a couple of duplicates that at first glance look like great weapons, the truly great weapons that will have the best stats with 4 or 5 good enhancements might be few and far between. Now, I found a legendary frozen core wand at level 6 that was a beast, and I did not find one better until I was like a level 17 or so. Being able to enhance them is cool, but you receive so many color-rated weapons you get to break down for what I feel is far too many runes, which makes enhancing your weapon, even as a low level, just super easy and not a challenge at all to work for. Overall, the loot in the game is my biggest complaint. You get far too many weapons, and also you cannot enhance your armor or tools, which would be nice, especially with huge gaps in between the next level of armor. Some enhancements would be nice. One more thing loot related is every time you find some secret hidden room and you see a nice glowing chest, it's such a letdown to find another arsonist bow or tarred bow or warrior helmet and not something that really gets you excited, which are the building materials. So really quick, if you don't know, the game has amazing building materials, which if I'm being honest are my favorite things to find out in the world. During the beta and especially the demo, these building materials were easy to get so players could get an idea of how many different materials there were in the game. They usually drop just by downing an altar and just gathering materials or breaking apart the buildings to learn those materials, but that has changed for the early access release. Now most of the parts, especially the fancier materials, are a challenge to find. Now I've not found all of them, but I will share those that I have found and hope that when the game launches we can all share them as we find them. So besides the boss fights and loot, another complaint I have is that the lore is helpful at times for finding certain items you need like flint or salt, but not for all items. For some items you will receive lore or a quest to point you to go looking in an area, but then other times the info is very vague. I cannot tell you how many hours I spent looking for amber, which is needed to upgrade the strength of your altar to a level 4, which will unlock the higher tiered shroud that is holding me back from completing stuff for the other crafters. Yet, no info given on where to find amber, and I've looked and looked. I found 3 amber out of the 15 I need that randomly just dropped from a cache around the Revel Woods. I finally came to the conclusion that it's just missing from the game that I played until it releases, but if it's out in the game and I missed it, I find that completely unbelievable, especially when I've received a hint about where iron is located, and get this, I first need amber to upgrade the altar before I can get to the iron. So yeah, I really hope they just left it out to limit us early players' ability to do more in the game, but I am starting to wonder. Now as for multiplayer, I do want to give a warning, but this is with incomplete information just from what I've been able to gather. It is more co-op than multiplayer, and if you're going to be playing with friends in one group, I think it will be fun. But if you're thinking of sharing a server with others who want to be off on their own, I do not think this game will be right for that playstyle. Maybe they will make it so some things are not shared, but the way it looks now, you share some of the achievements and unlockables like your crafter NPCs per server. Meaning, if Team A has a blacksmith at their base in the hills, and Team B wants their blacksmith at their base in the forest, then you'll have to summon the same one between those bases back and forth. Now there will be dedicated server or machine hosting at launch, so if someone out there does a dedicated server and it ends up working differently, let me know in the comments below. I really hope it does, so players can have their own game even on the same server, and it would also be nice to be able to have multiple NPC crafters of the same type at different base locations, even just for a solo player. Now I cannot move on from the things I have issues with without mentioning the performance. Without really trying to fine-tune my settings or even making sure my video graphics were running the latest drivers, and please understand I am playing on a 4090 i9 PC here, the game stutters at times with really brief pauses. Most of the time it's not a big deal, but if you're trying to, let's say, do a double swing jump and it happens, causing you to fall to your death, or in the middle of combat when an enemy is right on your ass, it can cause you to take damage or die. Now, it was announced a couple of weeks ago that Enshrouded will launch with DLSS2, and so my hope is that within the first week we will get a driver update that will address this hitching. But again, since this is early access, it could be months or a year or two before we see performance addressed. Now, I will not say I have the kind of lag that I've had when playing Ark Survival Evolved, but those hitches are mainly the only issues I've had, and it could be my 40 series card, since I also had issues with Starfield upon its release that many others did not until there was a driver update, so we'll see how it goes. Overall, the gameplay is good though, it's just those very noticeable hitches that can occur every few minutes or so. Overall, if someone is on the fence about this game, my advice is the same. Watch some streamers to see how it plays for them. The map itself only seems to be about a quarter finished, but what's in the game now is pretty large and covers a lot. It took me over 80 hours so far to get through and open up all of what you see on my map, but that was not at a casual pace like I normally play. If you have been needing a survival game where building is king, and yet there's also some good story, world building, and action adventure puzzles, then the game should be worth a pickup. I see nothing wrong with also waiting until more of the map is fleshed out, because if the world is going to be as big as the map seems to indicate, then this game is going to be quite epic. For me, it was an easy buy and one I will be getting for my wife on launch day. I cannot wait to play the game with her at normal speed and build as we go, and also to play as a healer and ice mage while she slashes and uses a bow. It'll definitely be fun with others. Enshrouded has a solid foundation and is different enough to distinguish itself from many survival games out there, and even though there was just a huge survival game that dropped right before Enshrouded, I believe that more survival purists who really enjoy building will get so much out of this game and will be playing it for hours in between features and zone updates and sharing their awesome one-of-a-kind builds for years to come. I completely recommend buying it for those fans, and for those on the fence, just keep watching it, as I'm sure you will pick it up as it only gets better. Thanks for watching, keep it positive, and happy building out there.